My hands were shaking as I held the pen. My daughter-in-law, Chloe, was pointing to another line on the form. And just sign here, Helen. This one is for the new savings account we talked about. Her voice was sweet, like honey, but her eyes were sharp and focused on the paper. I had already signed 4 different pages. My head was spinning. Something felt wrong, but I couldn't figure out what. I was just so tired. I lifted the pen, ready to put my name on another dotted line. That's when it happened. The bank clerk, a young man named Mark with kind eyes, reached over to straighten a different pile of papers. As he did, his hand brushed against mine. He slid a small, folded note right under my palm. My heart jumped into my throat. I quickly closed my fingers around it, my knuckles turning white. Chloe was too busy looking at the next form to notice. "Almost done," she chirped, smiling a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I didn't move. I couldn't. The small piece of paper in my hand felt as heavy as a brick. What did it say? Who was this clerk? And why was he secretly passing me notes? I was frozen, trapped between my daughter-in-law's fake smile and a secret message that could change everything. Before we go on, I want to know where in the world you are listening to my story. In the comments, please tell me the time right now and which country you are watching from. I love seeing my family of supporters from all over the globe. To understand how I ended up in this scary situation, I need to take you back. Back to the beginning, when my world was much brighter. My name is Helen. I'm 68 years old, and my whole life has been about my family. After my dear husband, Frank, passed away 5 years ago, my son, David, became my entire world. He was a good boy, my David. He grew into a kind man, or so I thought. He married Chloe 3 years ago. At first, she was like a fresh breeze. She called me Mom, helped me in the garden, and made David so happy. I was lonely after Frank, and having them close filled a hole in my heart. I wanted to help them. That's what mothers do. When they said they were struggling to save for a house, I offered to let them move in with me. My house was too big for one person anyway. I thought we would be a family, sharing our lives. For a little while, it was wonderful. I cooked their favorite meals. I did their laundry. I even used my savings to fix up the house, thinking it would be for their future. But slowly, things started to change. Chloe stopped helping in the garden. David started working later and later. Our family dinners became quiet and awkward. They began to treat me like I was a piece of the furniture. They would talk about their plans for their future, and I wasn't in any of them. I felt like a guest in my own home. The first big sign that something was wrong happened on my birthday. I woke up feeling hopeful. I made a special breakfast, thinking we could all eat together. But the house was quiet. David had already left for work. Chloe came downstairs, grabbed a coffee, and walked right past me without a word. She was on her phone. "Good morning, Chloe," I said, my voice a little too cheerful. "Oh, hi, Helen," she replied, not looking up from her screen. "Listen, David and I have a thing tonight, so we won't be here for dinner. There's some leftover meatloaf in the fridge you can have." My heart sank. They had forgotten my birthday. I sat at the table alone, the pancakes I had made going cold. I told myself it was okay. They were busy. Young people have their own lives. But it hurt. It hurt so much. That night, I heard them come home. I was in my room, but my door was open a crack. I heard Chloe laughing. "I can't believe she expected us to remember," she said. "It's not a big deal. We'll get her a card tomorrow or something." David sighed. "Yeah, okay. Just don't make a fuss about it." I quietly closed my door and cried. They didn't just forget. They didn't even care that they forgot. I felt invisible. I felt like a burden. The kindness I had shown them was not being returned. It was a one-way street, and I was running out of things to give. The low point came a few weeks later. I was feeling sick with a bad cold. I asked David if he could please go to the pharmacy and pick up some medicine for me. He looked annoyed. "Mom, I'm really swamped at work. Can't you just order it online?" he said. not even looking up from his laptop. I didn't know how to order medicine online. Frank always took care of that. I felt so old and useless. In the end, I had to put on a coat, feeling weak and dizzy, and drive to the pharmacy myself. As I walked through the aisles, feeling miserable, all I could think about was how I would have done anything for David if he were sick. I would have moved mountains. But he couldn't even drive 10 minutes to get his own mother some cough syrup. That was the day I started to see the truth. The love in this house was not real. It was a transaction, and I was the only one paying. Things went from bad to worse very quickly. A month after my forgotten birthday, David and Chloe sat me down in the living room. They had serious faces. "Mom," David began, looking uncomfortable, "we need to talk about the future. Our future." Chloe jumped in, her voice smooth. "We've been looking at houses, Helen. There's a beautiful new development on the other side of town. It's perfect for starting a family." I felt a flicker of hope. A family? Oh, that's wonderful news. I thought they were telling me they were going to have a baby. But Chloe's next words crushed that hope. "Yes, but we need a significant down payment. The bank won't give us a loan big enough." She paused and looked right at me. "We need you to help us, Helen. We need you to take money out of your retirement account." I was stunned. My retirement account was all I had left. It was the money Frank and I had saved our whole lives for. It was my security, my safety net. I don't know," I stammered. "That money is for my old age, for emergencies." "Mom, we are your family," David said, his voice hardening. "This is an emergency. This is our future. Don't you want to help your own son?" The way he said it made me feel like a bad mother. They both stared at me, waiting. I felt trapped. I loved my son. I wanted him to be happy. Maybe if I did this, they would be grateful. Maybe they would start treating me with love and respect again. So, against my better judgment, I agreed. That's what led us to the bank today. Chloe said she would drive me. She said she had already talked to the bank and set everything up. All I had to do was sign the papers. She made it sound so simple. But sitting in that chair, watching her point to line after line, a cold fear started to creep up my spine. These didn't look like simple withdrawal forms. The papers were long and filled with complicated legal words. When I tried to read one, Chloe would tap her finger impatiently. "It's just standard bank language, Helen. Don't worry about it. We don't have all day." I felt rushed and confused. And then the clerk, Mark, slid me that note. Now, sitting here with the secret note clutched in my hand, I have to make a choice. Do I pretend to feel sick and run to the bathroom to read it? Do I drop the pen and refuse to sign? Chloe is looking at me, her smile starting to look strained. "Is everything okay, Helen?" she asks, her eyes narrowing just a little. "You look pale." I take a deep breath. My heart is pounding so hard I'm sure she can hear it. The weight of the note in my hand feels like my only lifeline. I need to use the restroom," I whisper, my voice trembling. Chloe's smile vanishes. "Now? Can't it wait until we're finished? We only have 2 more signatures." The pressure is immense. She is staring at me. The clerk, Mark, is pretending to look at his computer screen. I don't know what to do. The note in my hand is burning a hole in my palm. This is not about a house down payment anymore. This is about something much, much bigger. And I am terrified of what I am about to find out. Chloe's stare was like a laser. "The bathroom can wait, Helen. This will only take a second." She tapped the paper with her perfectly manicured finger. "Just sign here." My bladder felt suddenly, truly full. It was the only excuse I had. "I'm sorry, Chloe. It really can't wait. It's an emergency." I pushed my chair back, my legs feeling like wobbling jelly. I kept my right hand clenched tightly around the secret note. A flash of anger crossed her face, but she quickly covered it with a tight smile. "Fine. Hurry back. The bank officer is a busy man." She glanced at Mark, who gave a polite, neutral nod. I practically ran to the ladies' room. my heart hammering against my ribs. I locked the door behind me and leaned against it, breathing heavily. I finally opened my sweaty palm. The note was a small, white square of paper, folded neatly. With trembling fingers, I opened it. The words, written in simple, clear handwriting, made my blood run cold. Do not sign anything. These are not withdrawal forms. They are power of attorney papers. They would give your son and his wife complete control over all your money and property. I am helping you. Pretend to be sick. We need to get you out of here. Mark. I felt the room spin. Power of attorney? Control over everything? This wasn't about a down payment. This was about stealing my entire life. My house, my savings, my retirement fund, everything Frank and I had worked for. They weren't just asking for help. They were trying to take it all. Tears of betrayal and shock welled in my eyes. How could David do this? My own son. Was he part of this? He had to be. A wave of nausea hit me so hard, I had to grip the sink. I looked at my pale, frightened face in the mirror. The kind, trusting grandmother was gone. In her place was a woman who had just discovered she was under attack. I had to be smart. I had to be an actress. Mark was right. I needed to get out of here. I splashed cold water on my face and took a few deep, shaky breaths. I had to look sick, and now I truly felt it. I crumpled the note and flushed it down the toilet, watching the evidence disappear. Then I walked out of the stall, letting my shoulders slump and my steps drag. When I returned to the desk, I made my voice weak and thin. Chloe, I mumbled. I don't feel well. I think I'm going to be sick. I need to go home. Now. Chloe's face fell. She was furious, I could tell, but she couldn't show it in front of Mark. Helen, we are so close. Can you just hold on for 5 more minutes? I shook my head, putting a hand over my stomach. I can't. I'm sorry. I looked at Mark, my eyes pleading. Young man, is there a back way out? I don't think I can walk through the main lobby. Mark stood up immediately, playing his part perfectly. Of course, ma'am. Right this way. It's no trouble at all. He looked at Chloe with polite sympathy. We can always reschedule for when Mrs. Henderson is feeling better. Chloe was trapped. She couldn't argue without looking like a monster. She forced a concerned smile. Of course. Let's get you home, Helen. But her eyes were cold and sharp as daggers. Mark led us through a maze of offices and down a quiet hallway to a side exit. As he held the door open for me, he subtly pressed another small piece of paper into my hand. I closed my fingers around it without a word. The car ride home was silent and tense. Chloe didn't speak a single word. She just stared straight ahead, her knuckles white on the steering wheel. I kept my face turned towards the window, pretending to be weak, but my mind was racing. What was on the new note? What was I going to do now? I was going home with the woman who had just tried to rob me of my entire life. When we got home, Chloe finally spoke. Her voice was sweet again, but it was a dangerous, poisonous sweetness. You just go lie down, Helen. I'll make you some tea. You need to get your strength back. She helped me to my room, her grip a little too tight on my arm. We can try again at the bank tomorrow. She closed my bedroom door, and I heard the click of the lock. My blood ran cold. She had locked me in. I was a prisoner in my own home. I waited until I heard her footsteps go downstairs, before I opened the new note from Mark. It had a phone number and just 5 words. Call me when you are safe. But I wasn't safe. I was trapped. I looked at the locked door, and then at the phone on my bedside table. I had to take a chance. I had to call for help. I picked up the phone, my finger trembling as I dialed Mark's number. It rang once, twice. Just as someone picked up, I heard the lock on my bedroom door turn. The door swung open, and Chloe stood there, holding a cup of tea. She wasn't smiling anymore. Her eyes went from my face to the phone in my hand. "Who are you calling, Helen?" she asked, her voice dangerously quiet. My heart stopped. Chloe's eyes were locked on the phone in my hand. I could hear Mark's faint voice on the other end saying, "Hello?" Thinking fast, I forced a weak cough into the receiver. "Yes, hello, Dr. Miller's office?" I said, my voice shaky but clear. "This is Helen Henderson. I need to reschedule my appointment for tomorrow." "Yes, I'm not feeling well at all." I paused, pretending to listen. "Thank you. Goodbye." I hung up before the person on the other end could say another word. I looked at Chloe, hoping my face looked pale and sickly. It was just my doctor's office, reminding me of my appointment. I let my hand tremble as I placed the phone back on the cradle. Chloe studied me for a long, terrifying moment. Her sharp eyes scanned my face, looking for a lie. Finally, she seemed to buy it. The cold anger in her expression softened back into that fake, sweet concern. "You need to rest, not make phone calls," she said, placing the cup of tea on my bedside table. "Drink this. It will help you sleep." She stood there, watching me, until I had no choice but to pick up the cup and take a small sip. The tea was bitter. "There, see? Now you get some sleep. We have a big day tomorrow at the bank." She gave me one more long look before leaving, closing the door behind her. I listened carefully, but this time, I didn't hear the lock turn. She thought she had me under control, but I wasn't. The bitter taste of the tea was a warning. I waited a full 5 minutes, then tiptoed to the door and listened. I could hear the faint sound of the television downstairs. I crept to the bathroom connected to my room and quietly poured the rest of the tea down the sink. My mind was clear. I was scared, but I was no longer confused. I was in a war, and I had just found an ally. I had to call Mark back, but I couldn't use the phone in my room. Chloe could pick up the extension downstairs at any moment. I needed to get to a phone she wouldn't hear. I remembered the old, corded phone we kept in the basement for emergencies. It was my only chance. I cracked my bedroom door open. The hallway was clear. I moved as quietly as a mouse, past the stairs and towards the basement door. Every creak of the floorboards made me freeze. Finally, I made it down the dark wooden steps into the cool, damp basement. The phone was on the wall next to the washing machine. My hands were shaking so badly I misdialed twice. Finally, I heard it ring. He picked up on the first ring. "Hello?" Mark's voice was cautious. "It's Helen Henderson," I whispered, my voice trembling. "From the bank. She locked me in my room. I'm not safe." "Mrs. Henderson, listen to me," Mark said, his voice low and urgent. "You were right to be scared. What they tried to do is illegal. It's called financial elder abuse. You cannot go back to the bank with her. Do you understand?" "But what do I do?" I pleaded, feeling tears of panic well up. "She's in my house. She's going to try again tomorrow." "You need to get out of there," he said firmly. "Do you have anywhere you can go? A friend? A relative?" I thought desperately. My sister, Margaret. She lived 2 towns over. We hadn't spoken much since David and Chloe moved in, but she was family. She had never liked Chloe. "My sister," I said. "I can go to my sister's." "Good," Mark said. "Go there. As soon as you can. Do not sign anything. Then, call this number from your sister's house." He gave me the name and number of a lawyer, a Miss Evelyn Reed, who specialized in cases like mine. "She's a friend. She will help you. I've already told her a little about what happened." A wave of relief washed over me. I wasn't alone. "Thank you, Mark. Thank you so much." "Be careful, Mrs. Henderson," he said before hanging up. I crept back upstairs, my plan forming. I would pretend to be sick and weak all evening. I would go to bed early. Then, in the dead of night, I would escape. The rest of the evening, I played my part perfectly. I pushed my food around my plate at dinner, saying I had no appetite. David barely looked at me. He seemed nervous, avoiding my eyes. I saw him and Chloe exchanging quiet, tense words in the kitchen. I went to bed early, feigning exhaustion. But I didn't sleep. I waited, watching the digital clock on my bedside table turn from 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. The house was completely silent. This was my chance. I got out of bed and dressed in the dark. I packed a small bag with just my wallet, some important papers I kept hidden in a drawer, and a change of clothes. I tiptoed to my door, took a deep breath, and turned the knob. It was locked. My blood ran cold. She must have come back and locked it after I'd fallen asleep. I was still a prisoner. I jiggled the handle, a sob of panic catching in my throat. It was solidly locked. I was trapped. I looked around my room for something, anything, to pick the lock. A bobby pin? A paperclip? Then, I heard it. The distinct sound of a key turning quietly in the lock. I froze, my back against the wall. The door slowly creaked open. A figure stood silhouetted in the dark hallway. It wasn't Chloe. It was much taller. It was my son, David. He looked at my coat and the bag in my hand. His face a mask of shock and confusion. "Mom," he whispered, his voice rough with sleep. "What are you doing? Where are you going?" We stood frozen in the dark, staring at each other. My son, my David, was looking at me like I was a stranger he'd caught robbing his house. The bag in my hand felt like a confession of guilt. I couldn't sleep," I stammered, my mind racing. "I was going to sit in the garden, for some air." It was a weak lie, and we both knew it. David stepped into the room, closing the door softly behind him. He didn't look angry, he looked worried. "Mom, what's going on? Why are you dressed? And why was your door locked?" He ran a hand through his messy hair. "Chloe said you've been acting strange since you got back from the bank. She said you were confused." A spark of anger cut through my fear. "Confused? David, she tried to make me sign papers that would give you two all my money. All of it. That's not confusion, that's robbery." He flinched, his eyes widening for a second before his face settled into a sad, patient look. It was the same look he used to give me when he thought I was forgetting things. "Mom, no, that's not what that was. Those were just papers for the down payment. You're misunderstanding. You've been so tired lately." He was using Chloe's words. He was in on it. The final, painful piece of the puzzle clicked into place, breaking my heart into a million pieces. My own son was looking me in the eye and lying. "A bank clerk showed me," I whispered, my voice cracking. "He warned me. He slipped me a note." David's face hardened. "What bank clerk?" "Mom, you can't trust strangers. They see an older woman alone and they try to twist things to scare you. They want to take advantage." He took a step closer. "We are your family. We are the only ones who really care about you." The irony of his words was like a physical blow. The people trying to steal from me were claiming they were my protectors. I felt dizzy, the room starting to spin. I had to get him to leave. "You're right," I said, letting my shoulders slump in defeat. I dropped my bag on the floor. I'm just tired and confused. It's been a long day." I moved towards my bed, pretending to be overwhelmed. "I just need to sleep." David watched me, his expression a mix of suspicion and relief. "Okay, Mom, that's a good idea. Just get some rest. We'll talk more in the morning." He walked to the door. "I'll leave this unlocked, okay? No more locking doors." He gave me one last, long look before stepping out and pulling the door shut. I waited, listening to his footsteps fade down the hall. I waited until I heard the creak of his own bedroom door closing. My act of surrender was over. His lie had given me the strength I needed. He had chosen her. He had chosen to betray me. Now, I had to choose myself. I picked up my bag. The door was unlocked, but the front door would be too loud. There was only one way out, my window. My bedroom was on the first floor, and it wasn't a long drop to the soft grass of the flower bed below. It was risky, but I had no other choice. I quietly pushed the window up, wincing at the slight squeak it made. The cool night air hit my face. I threw my bag out first, then swung my legs over the sill. With a deep breath, I pushed myself off, landing with a soft thud in the dirt. I stayed still for a moment, listening. The house remained dark and silent. I was out. I grabbed my bag and started to run. I didn't have my car, they would hear me start it. I had to run to the main road, to the gas station a mile away. I could call a taxi from there. I ran like I hadn't run in 40 years. My heart pounded, my lungs burned, but fear gave me wings. Every shadow looked like Chloe. Every sound was David coming after me. I didn't look back. I just ran. Finally, I saw the bright lights of the 24-hour gas station. I stumbled inside, breathless and disheveled. The young man behind the counter looked at me with wide eyes. "I need to use your phone," I gasped. "Please." I called the taxi company and gave them Margaret's address. While I waited, hidden behind a shelf of motor oil, I called the number Mark had given me for the lawyer, Miss Evelyn Reed. It went to a voicemail, but I left a shaky message, telling her who I was and that I was safe and on my way to my sister's. The taxi arrived. I slid into the back seat, and as we pulled away from the gas station, I finally dared to look back towards my neighborhood. My house was out of sight, but the weight of what I had left behind was crushing. The taxi ride felt like it took forever. When we finally pulled up to Margaret's small, familiar house, dawn was just beginning to lighten the sky. I paid the driver and walked up to her door, my whole body trembling with exhaustion and adrenaline. I rang the doorbell. A light came on inside. The door opened, and there stood my sister, wrapped in a robe, her hair a mess. Her sleepy eyes took me in my dirty clothes, my wild hair, the fear on my face. "Helen?" she said, her voice full of sleep and shock. "My God, what's happened? What are you doing here?" The sound of her voice, so full of genuine concern, broke me. The dam holding back my tears burst. I fell into her arms, sobbing uncontrollably. I was safe, for now. But my relief was short-lived. As Margaret led me inside, my phone, which had been in my bag, started to buzz. Then it buzzed again, and again. I pulled it out. The screen was filled with notifications. Missed calls from David, missed calls from Chloe, and then a new text message flashed onto the screen. It was from Chloe. The message was simple, but the words filled me with a new kind of terror. "We know you're at Margaret's. We're on our way. We need to talk. Don't do anything stupid, Helen." The phone felt like a live wire in my hand. "They're coming," I whispered, my voice trembling as I showed the text to Margaret. Her face, soft with sleep and concern, instantly hardened into a mask of fierce determination. "Like hell they are," she said, grabbing the phone from my hand. She didn't reply. Instead, she turned the lock on her front door with a firm, final click. The sound was a shield going up. "First things first," she said, guiding me to her kitchen table. "You need to call that lawyer, right now." She poured me a glass of water, her hands steady while mine shook. I dialed Miss Evelyn Reed's number again, praying she would answer. This time, a crisp, alert voice picked up. "Evelyn Reed speaking." "Miss Reed, this is Helen Henderson. Mark from the bank gave me your number. My son and daughter-in-law tried to trick me into signing a power of attorney yesterday. I escaped my house and I met my sisters, but they just texted me. They say they're on their way here." "Helen, listen carefully." Evelyn's voice was calm and commanding, a rock in my churning sea of panic. "Do not let them in. You are under no obligation to speak to them. If they attempt to enter, you call the police immediately. I am emailing your sister a cease and desist letter right now. When they arrive, you show it to them through the window. It is a legal document ordering them to stay away. It shows them you are serious and have representation." Margaret was already at her computer, her fingers flying across the keyboard. "Got it," she said. She went to her printer, and the whirring sound was the most beautiful noise I had ever heard. She came back holding a piece of paper that felt like a suit of armor. Just then, headlights swept through the front window. A car screeched to a halt outside. My heart leaped into my throat. David and Chloe got out, their faces tight with anger. Margaret didn't wait. She marched to the front door, unlocked it, and stepped out onto the porch, holding the printed paper high. I stood behind the screen door, watching. "Stop right there," Margaret commanded, her voice louder than I'd ever heard it. "You are not welcome here." David looked shocked. "Aunt Margaret, this is a family matter. We just need to talk to Mom. She's not well." "She's well enough to know you were trying to steal from her," Margaret shot back. "This is a cease and desist letter from her attorney. If you step 1 foot on this property or try to contact her again, we will call the police and have you arrested for trespassing and harassment. Do you understand?" Chloe stepped forward, her sweet act completely gone. "You can't keep her from her own son. We are her family. Everything she has is ours." "That's where you're wrong," I said, finding my voice and stepping out to stand beside my sister. The morning air was cold, but I felt a fire inside. "Nothing I have is yours. Not my money, not my house, and not me." David looked at me, and for a fleeting second, I saw the little boy I raised. But it was gone, replaced by a stranger. "Mom, please, we're sorry. We made a mistake. Just come home." "It hasn't been my home for a long time, David," I said, my heart breaking with every word. "A home is where you are loved and respected, not used. Now, please leave." They stood there for a moment, stunned by our defiance. Then, with a final, furious glare, Chloe pulled David back to the car. They sped off, leaving a cloud of dust and the shattered pieces of our family behind. The fight was over, but the war for my life was just beginning. With Miss Reed's help, I changed the locks on my house and formally evicted David and Chloe. I moved all my money to a new bank. I took back my life, piece by piece. It was hard. Some days, the grief over losing my son was so heavy I could barely get out of bed. But other days were filled with a new kind of joy. I had lunch with Margaret. I joined a book club. I started painting again. I learned that kindness and empathy were not weaknesses, but they needed to be protected with strong boundaries. A year later, I was in my garden, my hands in the dirt, feeling the warm sun on my back. I was at peace. I had learned the hardest lesson of all, that sometimes the most inspiring act of kindness is the one you show yourself. True strength isn't about never getting hurt. It's about finding the courage to protect your own peace after you have been. My story isn't about revenge. It's about a quiet, powerful revolution where a grandmother chose to fight for herself, and in doing so, finally found her freedom.